is Olivier. I'm a developer advocate at AWS. I'm also a GDE, a Google Developer Expert in web technology, which is why I'm here today. And more recently, Women Tech Maker Ambassadors, trying to have more women in tech, and especially as speakers. So doing a lot of mentoring on that. All right. Briefly before you start, CSS, how it works. CSS is managed by the W3C organization. And if you want to follow up what is going on with CSS, there's two websites. The first one is the w3.org. That's where you have all the news and what is going on with CSS. And the second one is the GitHub. If you go on this GitHub page, this is where all the discussions about CSS happened. So everything they do, you can see it here. Even when they have their monthly meeting, the meeting minutes are on the GitHub. If you want to see, what is coming up, you can see the draft of the specification, and you can comment them, so you can even participate if you want, or just like me, just looking up what is happening. And there's another website that is pretty new, which is called Interrupt. And the problem with CSS, it's like there were so many new APIs coming, and then you had, Chrome has implemented this one, but Firefox hasn't. But Firefox has implemented this one, but Chrome hasn't. So there was like this messed up thing between the navigators. So they all gathered around, say, okay, let's work together. What they did is that this Interrupt initiative, the goal is to say, okay, in 2024, this is the list of features that we're going to implement. And actually, let me show you what it looks like. So this is the Interrupt 2023. We can go to 2024 if we want, page. And basically, here you have all the features that all the navigators agreed to work. Okay, I hope we have a good screen because I have a lot of demo. These are all the features that decided to work on. And you can see for every feature on the browsers how many tests they pass. And you can go on any other feature, let's say point and mouse event. And you can see all the tests, if they pass or not. And the goal is to have like 100% on any of the features for every of the browsers. If you go to see on 2023, you can see that they didn't finish everything. But yeah, still the goal is to let's work all together on the same feature, so we know that at the end of 2024, we have this baseline 2024 with all these features implemented in all the browsers. So just to have it a bit better. Okay, now, let's go into some of the CSS features. Let's start with some that you may already know, let's hope. Custom properties, who knows about custom properties? CSS custom properties? Yes, CSS variables in CSS. Okay, same thing. Their official name is CSS custom property. They work in every browser now. I won't go into much details, but basically, for those who don't know, the idea is to declare a variable in CSS. So just do this --, the name, and then you put a value. And then to use it, it's pretty easy. Use the var function. I don't see behind me, so if it's not clear, if I need to zoom, whatever, you tell me, okay. And so you just use the var function, and you call the variable. And the good thing is that when you do like mobile first development, you don't need to copy paste things. You don't need to like reassign these variables. So you can want to say, okay, when I have a big screen, I want to change the font size. I want to change the columns number and these things. So in media queries, that is very, very useful. Hello, everyone. Welcome. The good thing with CSS custom properties is you can also have fallback. So let's say in your code, it's a big team of developers, and okay, this variable hasn't been imported. You can have fallback. Let's say, for example, in this part, the color primary doesn't exist, or something else, like the color primary is supposed to be a color, but someone somewhere just put it to 10 pixels, which is not compatible. Then you have a fallback. And you can have fallbacks of fallbacks of fallbacks if you want, just in case. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're talking about CSS. Who is a web developer here? Any new ones? Oh, yeah. Love it. Nice. And it's not something we use every day, but with CSS custom properties, you can also access them or modify them from JavaScript. Most of the time when there's a CSS API, there's a way to work with it in JavaScript. So I don't expect you to use that every day, but just know that you can change the value of a custom property directly in JavaScript. CSS nesting. Okay, who is using a CSS preprocessor like less, Sass, these kind of things? Yes, yes. Okay, I do too, sometimes. Less and less now, because we're going to see that there's a lot of features that were in Sass that are now available in CSS. But one of the main reasons why I was using Sass is for visibility and leasability. Like, and you can see that CSS nesting is supported in every browser now. Just because you can see, it's amazing. So basically, this is how we used to write CSS, which is not easy to read, and you copy paste a lot of things. And this is why we're using this Sass preprocessor, because that's much easier to write and even to read. Well, good thing is you put that in a website that works out of the box now. So this is valid CSS now. You can use nested directly in your app. You don't need Sass, you don't need less. This is going to work out of the box, which is pretty cool. So there's still some things from Sass we need, but at least for the nesting part, CSS does it now. And they keep improving it. The first version, you had to trick a little bit things. Now, it works out of the box. OK, space-separated color notations. You remember how you write colors, like RGB 000 with a comma? Well, the new notation, you don't need the comma anymore. So the thing you see at the bottom, RGB and just using spaces, that works. The previous one still works, but the reason why I encourage you to use the new one is because the new color spaces in CSS don't support the first one. So for example, if you want to do some color display P3 or this lab or LCH, these only work with the new notation. So these don't work with the comma notation. These only work with the space notation. Are you good? Has. Who knows about this one? Yes, OK, a bit. I like this one. This one also works with every browser. Basically, OK, I have some demo now. Basically, has what it is OK, let's try to zoom. What it is, so I have a web page here, and you can see I have like a section with an image, I have an empty div, I have another section without image, and I have a section with an image. Now, if I was in CSS and I would say, oh, you know what, I want to put a border on my section, and I can do that, section. And then I have border right on my section. Now, if I'm like, yeah, but I want the border on the section with the images. So, I can say, OK, if I do images, no, that's on the image. If I do this, that's still on the image. But I want to highlight only the sections who have an image. And that's actually what the has CSS is doing. So now what I'm doing here is that I'm asking to put a border on the section who have an image in them. Because remember in CSS, you can apply things depending on what's above. But now you can also apply CSS on what's below. So if a section has an image, it then has the border. And you can even do more, because you can decide to put a style depending on what's inside the component, the div, but also the siblings. So if I do something like that, now I'm saying, OK, I want to put a red border on the sections who have an image, and we also have a div after them. So like, for example, this one is the only one. It has an image, and there's a div right after. So I can put a CSS on this div based on what it contains and based on its siblings, which is something that we used to have to use JavaScript to do before. So that's pretty cool. Another thing we can do is, I have another part of the demo here. Let me tick, 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 tick. Let me comment that. So here I have a list with some UL and LE. And so same thing, I can say, OK, you know what? I want to put the text in color for all the lists that have at least 3 elements. And same thing, you can change and say, OK, you know what? I want to put in red only the list who have like only and purely 4 elements, not less, not more. So now when you retrieve data from a database or whatever, an API, you can actually decide to display the list based on the number of elements without using JavaScript. Just with this CSS, you can say, oh, my list has 3 elements, or my list doesn't have elements. And you can then print something or apply a style, which is actually pretty cool. If you're like me, you've used a lot of JavaScript to do that in the past. That's pretty cool. Do you hear me well? I have a lot of echo. I don't know if it's me or no. It's good for you? OK, good. Color mix. Color mix is another interesting one. Another thing that we used to have to use SAS for that. So if I take my color mix here, so if you're using SAS, you may be familiar with these functions here. Oh, let me zoom. With this function, lighten, darken, transparentize, and you also had the mix one. Well, that's the same idea of this one, but now it's available directly in CSS. You don't need to use SAS anymore. So what it does is, with the new CSS, okay, I'm going to, what you can do, you can say, okay, I'm using this color mix here. And how it works is that it's a CSS function. How it works is that you specify in which color thing you want to use it, and then you give it a base color. The base color here is blue, and then you say, okay, I want 50% of this base color, and I want 50% of red. So you can do that directly now here. I thought I had another, no, okay, anyway. So that's how it works. And so you can do, and let's say, if I want to like 20% of blue and 50% of red, if I want to have, I don't know, and 20, 80. The thing is, there's just like a little hike here, is that what if I put, I mean, you can say like 2080 works. 2050, you start to wonder, okay, that's weird. That's 70%. What's the 30% remaining? Thing is, that also works. 80% of blue and 50% of red, which also, I mean, if you're good at mathematics, that doesn't add up. And actually, the first time I saw that, I was like, that is weird. We can have like more than 100% in colors. But actually, they thought about it. So if you go on the documentation of the function, there's a whole explanation that says how it works. So if I only put 1%, it's going to make like a, tell me when it's not easy to read. It's going to take the difference between 100% and the value you put, same if it's missing the second one. And then if it's not 100%, it does this weird stuff thing, which I'm going to let you go and read the documentation, but they handle it. So if you don't put 100% total, it's not a big deal. All right, HSL color, that's another nice one. It's one of the new functions. So it doesn't work on Firefox yet, but it's coming. They're working on it. So HSL here. So same thing. So I have also like divs here, and I need to zoom everything. And the idea is to also, like, again, what we used to do, we used to be able to lighten, darken, transparentize, and etc. HSL, what it does is that it allows you to work on the H, S, and L, which are the hue, saturation, and lightness of the color. And so how it works is you take a basic color. You say, okay, I want to start from this color. And then you can modify the 3 components. So let's say here, I want to keep the same hue, the same saturation, but I want to change the lightness. So if I put 10% here, that's very dark. If I put 92% that we had, that's very light. And same, I can decide, okay, you know what? I want to change the hue to 300, and the hue is going to change. And, okay, you may ask, yeah, that's cool, but, I mean, I like to work with my hexa colors or RGB colors. One of the reasons that is interesting that you can actually start from a color and create color palettes. I don't know if some of you are using, like, design systems or, you know, yeah, or even creating design systems. So let's say I want to create a palette, for example. What I can do, I can say, you know what, I want to create this color 100. And this is, I leave from my color, which is like blue. I keep the hue, I keep the saturation, but I change the lightness to 80%. And now, the thing is, if I decide to do that for like 200, 300, and I just change this percentage here, 70, 60, 50, now I get a color palette normally. No? Did I break something? I must have break something. Oh no, you're not supposed to be here. Yeah, here. So you see that I created a color palette just by saying, okay, I have my base color, blue, and I just changed the saturation here. And then you can create entire themes that then your developer team can use in their application, which is actually pretty cool and pretty easy to do now just with CSS. Where's my slides? here. Media query range. Who is doing like mobile first application using media queries? Yes. Yes. Okay. Media queries. So that's very. Let's go very quick on this one. This is very basic. So that's how you write a media query. And the thing is, I don't know about you, but my brain, every time I see that, it takes me like half a second for my brain to understand. Okay, that it means it applies when it's bigger or smaller than 750. And that's why we now have this notation that works too, which for me is way easier to read. So now I know that, oh, that's when the width is like smaller or equal to 750. And it works the same when you had these. Now just write this, that works, that's much easier to read for developers. So new notation works exactly the same and it works in every browser. Container queries. Another one. This one is actually pretty amazing. So I remember when I was younger, and they came up with the media queries. Media queries were magical because like I can actually put CSS that apply only when I'm in mobile or when I'm in desktop application. The problem is that media queries are based on the viewport or the screen or the side of the window, basically the viewport. But sometimes you don't care about the viewport. You care about the content on the page. And that's exactly what container query is here to fix. So let me take an example here. Tick, tick, tick. Where's my container query? So, okay, here I have an application. So I have 3 boxes. Okay, again, I need to zoom. I have 3 boxes, small, medium, big here. And they are like, they have sizes. So the small is 500 pixels, 700, 900 pixels. And every one of them has a color. So the small one is blue, the medium one is green, and when I have a big screen, it's red. So that depends on the size of the viewport. So if I go to my application here, container queries, actually what you can see is that I have my application, and when I go above 600, everything becomes green. If I go above 800, everything becomes red. That's because of the container query here, media query here that says below 600 is blue, and 100 is green, or then it's red. But the thing is, if you look at it, my small div here is still under 600 pixels. Maybe I don't want it to be red because of the size of the window or the screen. And that's exactly what container query is. And the only thing you have to do is to add this container type inline size on your box, and then you just replace your media query by container. And what it's doing now is that I have my 3 boxes, and when my viewport is going above 600, my 2 divs below become green. But the small one is still less than 600. It doesn't care about the size of the screen or the window. It's still less than 600, so it remains blue. And same if I go above 800, I only have the big one that becomes red. Because I don't care about the size of the screen. I only care about the size of the container, which is, I mean, for me, media queries should have been like that right from the beginning. And so a way you can use that, if I have, let me take another example here. I have that's very big now. I have a blog website where I have a main page and a side nav, and I have this call to action here, component. Basically, it's the same here and here, except this one is in the sidebar. And if you look at the website what it looks like, this is what it looks like. Okay. So here, this component here and this one are the same, but you can see that they're using container queries. So the button is not always displayed at the same place. And that's because on the left, the component in which it is bigger than the one on the sidebar. So if I start shrinking, you can see that at some point here on the main one, the one on the left, the button is going to be below. And not because of the size of the screen, but because of the size of the parent container. That's why the one on the right still remains the same. If I continue shrinking, you can see the sidebar goes below, but the button is back on the right. And it's not because of the size of the screen, it's because the container in which it's in is bigger. If I continue to shrink, then the button goes on the bottom. And these components are the exact same. They're just using container queries, so their behavior changes based on their parent's container and not the size of the screen. Which, again, I think media query should have been like that right from the beginning, but I mean, progress is progress, so we're good. Viewport unit, if you're doing mobile development, you may have seen that. It's not new. Do you know this 100 VH and VW? Yeah? Basically, you're telling, okay, I want my component to be 100 of the view height and the view width, which is okay on a desktop application because that's the size of the viewport. On mobile, it's a bit more complicated because in some browsers you have, the URL bar or menu, and these counts. So when you put 100 VH, you always have this very frustrating thing because unless it hides the URL bar and the menu, it doesn't actually represent what the people see on the screen. So this is why we have new ways of doing that now. So they decided to go with like, okay, so we can have like small viewport and like large viewport, depending if you have like the bars or not. And so they, okay, so let's go for like 100 SVH or 100 LVH. It's like, that's cool, because that's exactly what the user sees. But then that's still like two different things to do in CSS. So this is the one you should use. I'm not saying the previous one are useless, but DVH just means, okay, when I want 100 DVH, it's 100 dynamic view height. So this is always going to be what is visible by the user. So don't have the scrolling thing problem anymore. Aspect ratio, another one. Who is like 35 years old plus? Might anyone? Okay. Something also that is amazing because something we've been struggling with for a long time. Aspect ratio. I'm guessing you're using like, this news app on your phone or whatever app where you have to scroll and sometimes you have images. I don't know if it happened to you, but I'm using some news app, and what happens often is that I'm reading and I scroll. At some point there was an image that was loading and the image pops up and then just losing what I was reading. That is very frustrating. You scroll, an image pops up and then you're not where you were supposed to be anymore. So this is what happened because we didn't have a placeholder for the image. And actually, that is where the aspect ratio can be useful. So the idea is to say, okay, it works on an image, on a div, whatever. But this is to say, okay, this div, image, whatever you want, is going to always have this aspect ratio. Meaning, if I have on my image an aspect ratio 1:1, because I know my image is going to be squared, even when my image is not loading, it's actually taking the space of this image. So now I can scroll, my image pops up, and then I don't have any problem. And you can see that used on like, Facebook or this kind of application where you have like, some placeholders for some of the items. And if I was asking the question before of who is older like me here, is because this is something we'll be struggling for those who have been using that when you wanted, back then you wanted to add like YouTube videos on your website. You had to do this weird stuff that you used to copy paste on the internet of 56.25%. Now you can just use like, oh, it's a video, aspect ratio 16:9, and then you will have your video the right size. So that is actually pretty useful sometimes. Animation timeline is another one I like. So it's working on Safari now. Still not working on, on Firefox, sorry. It's still not working on Safari, but I mean, they will come to it. The animation timeline is, if you've been on these websites where, when you scroll, you have this animation that appears as you scroll. Most of them are used JavaScript. But actually, there is now a way to do it, except on Safari. There's now a way to do it on purely CSS. So let's say here, I have a blog, okay, a blog post. And in the middle of the text, I have these mark here. So some of the text is highlighted. What I've done is that, okay, I'm just saying, oh, okay, the marks, just like it has a background, which is yellowish, it has some border radius, and this is what you can see here. But there's a lot of good. Now, these are, marks text. And what would be cool is to be able to animate them. And actually, that's where the new animation timeline, bigger, better? This animation timeline CSS functions is useful. Because what I'm going to do when I do that, so I have declared here a keyframe, so it's an animation. I'm just saying, okay, I want the background position to move. And just by adding this animation timeline here, and also saying which animation I want to use, here what I'm saying, okay, I want the animation to, I don't know if you guys see correctly or not. Let me put it a bit higher. What I'm saying here is that I want the animation to start when the mark is at 20% of the bottom of the page. And I want it to be finished when it's at 60% of the top of the page. So basically what it's doing here is that, can we just, okay. Here what is happening is that when I scroll, you can see that, oh, it's there. The animation is actually appearing. Do you see? Or I'm like right in front of the screen. Okay, you can see the animation here. And it starts when it's like 20% of the bottom. And when it reaches 60% of the top of the page, I'm at the end. Meaning if I change that, and it works for all the one after that, you can see up this animation. And if I decide to put like, so you can see, if I decide to put like 10% here, now I'm saying, okay, you start the animation when it's like 20% of the bottom of the page, and you finish it when you're at 10%. So it's going to be much, much slower now. So if I start now, you can see that it needs me to reach almost the top of the page for having the animation completely done. And this is just an example with just like, highlighting text, but you can do everything you want. You can have like an image, turning to like a right place, or everything you see on the internet with this nice animation when you scroll. They used to use JavaScript. Now you can actually do them with using like purely CSS. Just so you know, one of the advantages of using CSS over JavaScript is that CSS relies more and more on the GPU of your computer. So it's much better in terms of performance than JavaScript when you can do. So that's another one that is interesting. And I've seen people doing actually fun things with that, like, fire coming and stuff. Won't go into details. Animation timeline. Ooh, columns. Columns, that is a shame because, okay, this CSS feature has been around since 2017, and I just learned about it a month ago. So, but yeah, I think it's still 2017 that exists. And basically, I don't know if you know these, let me check, so many demo here. I don't know if you know these, this kind of library, like masonry. This library allows you to do this kind of, image gallery thing, where you want to like display images in a very nice way. Well, it turned out I've used this kind of JavaScript libraries for quite some time. And you don't need them. That is just, you don't need them. So let's say I have an application, a demo. Where is it? Here. So here, what I have just my body, and I have a div images with the class images. Let me zoom. It's big, with a lot of images in it. So if I go on my website, this is what it looks like. I have all these images. So right now, nothing specific, just all these images here. Now, what I want to do, I want to say, okay, this is cool, but I want them to be displayed nicely. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to say, okay, I want my image class to be displayed in 3 columns. And now if I do that, what is happening is that I have 3 columns. You can see one here, one here, one here. But still, in each column, it's not very, very beautiful. So what I can do, I can say, okay, but I want every image to take 100% of the column. So now I won't have 2 images side by side. So what I have here, I have something like that, which is the exact same effect we saw with the JavaScript complicated library, but I have 3 columns, and it's actually well displayed. The only problem here is that if I have a big screen, I have big images. If I shrink, if I have a small screen, I have these small images. It's not responsive. So I was like, oh, that's sad because it was almost cool, It's just not responsive. Well, actually, it can be. Here, I said, okay, I want to have 3 columns. But what I can do with the column property, I can say, I don't care about the number of columns, but I want my images. Whoa. Let's say 200 pixels. I want the columns to be 200 pixels. So what I have now is that my columns are always from a pixel. So if I have a big screen, I have more columns. If I have a smaller screen, I have just one column. And I have this very nice gallery-looking style, which is just, what? 2 lines of CSS, where people are using sometimes libraries of like thousands or hundreds of lines of codes. So yeah, bit of shame, because that has been around for like years now, and I just learned about a month ago. I was like amazed. That's actually a pretty good one. Oh, the attribute one. Who is using attributes? Anyone? No? All right, let me check the time. So I'm not. Okay, should be good. So attribute. So if I go back to my here. Okay, let's remove all this. Let's say I have 3 boxes here. So my boxes are not there. Aha. What is happening? What? The image worked, but the boxes don't work? Supposed to see things. Oh, here they are. Needed to unzoom. So I have, okay, 3 boxes right now. They don't do much. Basically, I'm giving them a bit of CSS. So here I'm just saying, okay, my boxes have a background blue. They have padding, nothing very fancy. I just have 3 boxes, okay? For now, nothing absolutely amazing. But on my boxes, I want to have a, a before on it. What before is doing is that it can add like a pseudo element before a web, an HTML element. So here what I'm saying, okay, I want a box which is a bit below, a bit up, above, and a bit on the left, with the content new on it. And that's how you have this, new thing you see sometimes on like, website. And let me zoom. Nope. Yeah. So to do that, I just had to do like the, before. And where the attribute comes into play is that, okay, this is cool, but, the new here that I put in CSS, let me zoom. Here, the new that is in CSS, it's written in the code. So first, I can't translate it, and I can't have different ones per div. And that's exactly what the attribute is used for. So instead of putting new, I can say, okay, you know what? I want to retrieve an attribute for my component. And here I'm just saying, okay, you know what? You're not going to take the data text, which is in every of the div. And so by doing that, I have now new, shiny, and old. Because this is taken directly from the HTML, which means you can have different translations, and that can come from a database, and this is in the HTML, not in the CSS. Which is also something that it's not new. I think it's like 2019 or something. But not many people use it, so I thought it was interesting to show it to you people. All right, what else do I have? View transitions. Okay, who knows about this one? Yeah, this one is cool. This one is cool. I've done a lot of talks on I don't know if you've been to the talk this morning on offline JavaScript and website. I've done a talk in the past talks on these progressive web apps, because PWAs, the promise was that web applications are going to be almost identical as native applications. We're going to be able to do the same thing, like databases and there's a splash screen and installation. There was still one thing that I was kind of envious about native mobile developers is the animations. When they click on a button and then it goes to the next page in this very nice animation. We didn't have that in web. We have animation on the web page, but you can't animate between 2 pages. And this is where view transitions come into place, and Safari is supporting it this time. Thank you, Apple. It's behind a flag on Firefox, or it was. Maybe it's not anymore. Need to check that though. But so the idea is, okay, let me show you. Let me take a demo. So here I have a demo. Tick. I have a web page in which I have a lot of, cards like that with people. These are actually people from my team, so if you want to see people from my team, here. So here I have, a bunch of these, unzoom, a bunch of these cards here. And when I click on it, I change page. Okay, it's meant to be for mobile. So I change page. Right now, that's how the web works. You click, the URL changes, and then you have a new page, okay? But what I would like to do is to animate this transition. And that's actually what this view transition API is for. Let me just put that here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this small piece of JavaScript. So let me just add it first. Oof. And what it does is, so I don't care about this. Where is it? Where is it? Come on. View transition, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, somewhere in the code here. So what happens with this piece of JavaScript is that you're telling your browser that when you click on a link, what it's going to do is going to take a snapshot of the current page, and it's going to take a snapshot of the second page that the one is going to load, and it's going to compare them, and it's going to create an animation between the two. So I don't get it. I'm dead dumb. Anyway, so what happens by just adding this piece of JavaScript is that now, when I click on a card, I don't know if you see, because it's a bit subtle, but there's this, fading kind of animation. Okay, let me show you here. I don't know if you know how to debug animation. There's a, can we see more? There's an animation debug in Chrome. So basically, I can decide to, stop an animation. So when I click on it, what is happening actually is, if you see down here, I know it's a bit low, but what is happening is, okay, let me go back again. So what's happening is there's this animation which is triggered, and you can see when it changes the page, there's this, fading animation. And if you look at the bottom left, what it is here, there's this, pseudo CSS kind of looking element. And actually, if you're curious and you go look at the HTML here, you can see at the top this view transition pseudo element that has been added automatically by the browser to your HTML tag. And if you look into it, you can say, oh, I have a view transition group in which I have like view transition old. And if you look into it, what is it? Oh, that's actually that's not the right. Oh, come on. Okay, let's view transition here, tick, tick. You can see that, so these are CSS, so you can see that's what happened when the old page leaves, and that's the view transition new is what happens when the new page arrives. And you can see that one of them is a fade, this is a fade in, and this was a fade out. So you can say, okay, so if the browser is actually adding CSS on my behalf to do some transition animation, then it means maybe I can override them. And that's when it becomes magical. Because if I can override an animation, the sky is the limit. You can do whatever you want. So now let me take another example. So I have the exact same page here. But now what I've done here, tick, tick. Big screen here. So what I've done here is, tick. I have created this keyframe, where if you know a bit how it works, you will guess what it's doing. I have some zoom out, zoom in, flip out, flip in. And what I'm doing, I'm overriding the CSS that the browser is adding. So I'm saying, okay, you know what? Now, when there's the old page and new page coming, I want you to do this animation. And when there's a new page coming, I want you to do this animation. And with that, don't do that at home, not recommended, but you can have this animation when you change page. You can say, oh, that's nice. Every time I go to another page, you can have this, zoom out, flip, zoom in, which is actually exactly what is happening if I decide to debug my animation again here. And I'm showing you here. This is, why again, when I, okay. This is what is happening now. So you have a zoom out on the group, then you have a flip in and flip out on the old page and the new page, and then you have a zoom in, you can see here. So basically, you can do whatever you want. You can make like your page transition, like the one like burning and the new one arrives, or everything that is possible to do with CSS animation, you can do it to change page. And again, the one that I showed you, don't do that at home, because that's very, I mean, as a user, I don't want to see that on every website. But you can do it. No, okay, that's becoming a bit more like what native app developers can do. They see something they can do that we'd like to do. It's when they click on an image and there's the same image on the next page, and it's like the image is the same one, it's like growing or moving. We can do that. So how it works? I have, let me take. How it works is, so on every badge, I have the name, I have an image, I have a few other information. And so if the only thing you need to do is you say, okay, in the first page, the initial page, have this HTML with a CSS class banner image, in which there is an image. And I'm just going to say, okay, I'm going to add this view transition name, and you give it a name, whatever you want. And then if in the page after, you have another component with the exact same view transition name, the browser is going to know that they are the same, then it should animate them. So what it looks like then is that. So here again, if I click on someone, okay, I don't know if you saw it because it's not meant to be a desktop application, but you can see that it's actually zooming the person image. And actually, if again, I'm just showing up, let's go on mine. You can see that it's actually zooming the image. And when I go to the next page, then I'm on my next page. The URL changed, but you thought that it was the same image coming up. And again, this is doing a zoom thing, but you can see here, there's a lot of animation going on. And you can actually change all the animation of all the components you want to move. So you can say, okay, the pictures, instead of zooming, it's like flipping, doing whatever, and then arriving at the right place. So now you can do this thing that only native app developers could do. And there is actually a cool application that you can find online. Someone, it's not mine, but someone recreated like a kind of, Deezer, Spotify, I don't know what you use here, like music application. We have this playlist. And so when you click on a playlist, you have this animation. You change the page, now you have the music, but it's a different page. You have this nice looking style like native app. And remember, it's a video. You click on it, you go to another page, and you have this very nice animation. And you can see the URL changed. It's like it's like a transition between two HTML pages, which I think is amazing. When you have like a mobile application with does that, and you know that now, as a web developer, you can do that too. That is pretty cool. Okay, few other things, color contrast. I want to talk about accessibility anymore. Accessibility is important in web, especially in web, because it's the most used platform on earth. So it's on desktop, on mobile, even on TVs. The web is everywhere. So accessibility is important. I want to finish with a few things on that. Color contrast is one of them. Unfortunately, right now it's not supported by any browser, but it's coming. But I told you there were some CSS things I wanted to show you that are not there yet. It's behind a flag on Safari, but every time I activate it, it crashed the whole browser. So I'm not going to show it to you. But the idea of color contrast is to say, when we did this palette earlier, palette is cool, but the problem is that if okay, let's say I have this, yeah. The problem is that, the text on the background may be not easy to read. So like, for example, what I would like to have is that when the color is darker, I want the text to be light. when the color is lighter, I want the text to be darker. And this is actually what this color contrast is going to do. Let me zoom in. So the color contrast is going to take a color, which is the background color, and then you're going to give it two colors to choose from. Here, just put like black and white, and it's going to evaluate which color will have the best contrast on the background and display it. So for example, if I just, take a, very purple one like that, then you have, the color of the background is darker, and I can see the text has changed. So here I'm like cheating because the API doesn't work yet, so I have a polyfill that is doing that, but that's exactly what we want to do in terms of accessibility, especially when we don't know what the background is going to be like. On that matter, I just want to show you like a website, maybe something I don't know if you know about. Intercolor. Does anyone see something? Contrast checker. I don't know if you know about this website. This is a website from WebAEM. So in the meantime, when you don't know which contrast you should have, which contrast you should have on your application, this is a good way to find it. So let's say I have like a background here, and I put it like very dark. So you can see that here, it's telling me that this fails. So you need to have like contrast of 4.75 something to make it work. But you can see that the blue on the on the dark gray, that's not good. But if you change the color, then you can see, okay, right, if it's lighter, then it's going to work. Now, a way to debug that when you have these issues and you don't know if the contrast is good or not, the good thing is that Chrome does it for you. So if I go on the Chrome DevTools, which you should use, Chrome DevTools are amazing. If I go on the Chrome DevTools here, and I just go on here, you can see my background here, and actually, okay. Here. So I go on the color here, and you have this, this contrast ratio here. Trying to have the right zoom for you. You have this contrast ratio here, 1.32 at the bottom. And basically, okay, let me try to have it a bit higher so you can see. And basically, if I click on that, it's going to tell you, okay, this is not good. And you just need to click on this, recommendation here, and I click on that, and you can say, okay, it's going to pick a color for me that is right to get the good ratio for this background color. And you can also do it here on the, you don't see it, but there's like a very, very thin white line here. That is the limit between you don't have the good ratio and you have the right ratio. So use Chrome DevTools because it can give you some indication like now, and if your website is accessible or not. Yeah, this is how it works. This is how it's going to work when it works. In the meantime, this is the polyfill. You can find it online to make it work until it's supported by the browser. Another thing on accessibility before we finish is preferred contrast. Also, you should use that. In some operating system like Windows, Linux, Mac, people can actually decide the preferred contrast they want. If they have like issues or with eyes, whatever, they may have asked for like a low contrast or a high contrast. And actually in CSS, there's already a media query for that. So if you have a media query say, okay, preferred contrast is more or less, then you can apply directly some CSS for this. So if in the system people have put that, then your website will just take the operating system value and just apply the contrast. Okay, I'm reaching the end of the presentation. A few resources if you want to keep learning on CSS. Developer.mozilla.org, that's where you have all the documentation. Web.dev, which is a website managed by Google where they put blog posts. You have a lot, like the view transition, you have a lot of examples on it with a YouTube and things. That's pretty cool. And last but not least, this is the YouTuber I followed that is doing, some people know him apparently, he's doing a lot of amazing things on CSS, and this is thanks to him, I don't know him, but thanks to his channel that I actually started to learn and to like CSS, so Kevin Powell. And on that, thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Any question? Is it okay if I take a selfie with you, guys? Can I take a selfie with you? Oh, let's go on the side so I can have all of you on it. Are you ready? Hey! Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Olivier. That was very insightful. I think just one question I have is regards the attributes that you talked about. Does it work with dynamic values in spaces where you use it for like React or all of the stuff? Maybe. Does it work for dynamic values?
Yeah, it works if you have dynamic values that come from like an API. Yeah, it's going to change it.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. So the question, well, it's less of a question and more of maybe advice. How does one stay ahead of all this development? Because sometimes I feel overwhelmed by the volume of what you can do and I don't do. I don't know if that makes sense because seeing all of this today now, I see that there's a lot of JavaScript that can be replaced with CSS, and the ones that are already, the issues I already solved with JavaScript can obviously be replaced with CSS, but there are even some of these that it feels like a lot. So how can I like stay ahead of that and know when to apply these things and
Okay, there's a few things. First, the website web.dev. There's this new things that came. It's called baseline. It's a bit like interop. So there's like a baseline 2023, baseline 2024. And basically, this is a recap of all the new features that have been implemented in all the browsers in every year. So if I go to baseline 2023, for example, then you can see in 2023 everything that has been added. So you have the new color model, you have the color mix. So I usually like look at this website, web.dev, and go to the baseline. Otherwise, social media, just follow the people who work on the Chrome team. Also something like Adi Osmani, these kind of people. Yeah, baseline newly available. Everything that is considered baseline is because it works on every browser in the current stable. So you can see in 2024, this is all the new features that have been added already and that work on any browser.